So you're all very welcome today. We're delighted to be here with you from Suicide or Survive to talk about the Eden programme. So we're just going to give a minute for people to come in before we start our conversation. Just give it a minute or two and then we'll get going. So it's good to see you, Brian. Patricia. The traffic is bad out there. It is.
The weather. Traffic is terrible.
That too.
We could spend 45 minutes talking about that, couldn't we? About
the
fact that we're on the summer holidays and still the traffic is bad. But we won't.
I thought about the weather. I was going to say you could counsel me for an hour about the weather. I'm getting
Okay, I'm just going to wait until we come to 16:02 and then I think we'll get started. And if people want to join us, then they can continue to join us. Brian, I notice your clock in the background says 16:03.
You wouldn't be minding that now. I'm looking at it. It's backwards on mine.
Okay.
9 on yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and you're all very welcome to our webinar today, Rediscovering Hope. So today we're going to talk about the Eden programme. And what is the Eden programme? Well, the Eden programme is an educational programme. It has a therapeutic element and it supports people to move away from suicide as an option of choice in times of crisis. So we're here today to talk with two of our Eden facilitators, Patricia Allen Garrett and Brian Kelly. And perhaps you'd like to introduce yourselves. Maybe Patricia, would you like to go first?
Sure. So, as you've said, my name is Patricia Allen Garrett, and I work generally as a psychotherapist right across the board. And I have a particular interest in what seem like two opposite areas. One, trauma, the other is the psychology of happiness. So I work across the board, both with individuals and with organizations around those. And I've been working as a psychotherapist since 2005. So it feels at this point like it's both a very long time and a very short time. So I'm not quite sure where the time has gone. And yet it also feels like there's been a fair bit through all that as well. So that's the type of experience that I have. And that's what I'm doing just at the moment.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Patricia. And it's really good to have you on today. So thank you. Brian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hell yes, folks. I'm Brian. They're the good looking ones. I'm Brian. You spot me easy enough on the screen. I am with Eden since about 2014. And initially I trained as a counsellor. I began my training back in 1993, which is quite a while ago. And we didn't call people psychotherapists then, they were just counsellors. Psychotherapists only came out later. But anyways, I've been involved with Eden, like I say, since 2014. Presently, I work with Suicide or Survive. I work with several other organisations as well. I have a small private practice. I would mainly work with couples and around relationship stuff, communications, conflict, that kind of things, where my forte kind of lies if I fall into a category. But yeah, is that enough for now?
Lovely, Brian. Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. And thank you for being here today as well.
And I suppose apologies. I completely forgot about the work with SOS. I've been working with SOS since 2010. Started off on the Eden programme, do some of the other programmes as well, but I've been with Eden since 2010.
Great. Thanks, Patricia, for adding that in. And I suppose it's a good time to say that all of our facilitators are very highly qualified with backgrounds in either psychotherapy, counselling, nursing, psychology. But so all the facilitators that are involved in Eden come from a professional background. My name is Breed O'Mara. I'm the National Eden Programme Manager, and compared to Brian and Patricia, I'm the new kid on the block. I only joined Suicide or Survive last December, but it's a real privilege to be part of this team. My own background is I started out as a psychiatric nurse, did general nursing, worked in nursing for over 30 years, stayed in mental health and psychiatry, and then went on and trained to be an integrative psychotherapist. So I'm working at that now as a psychotherapist with my private practice, and I work with Suicide or Survive as well, managing the Eden program. So, like Brian and Patricia, lots of experience in mental health, and very glad to be able to bring that experience to the Eden program. So for the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to talk about the Eden program, and hopefully we'll provide you with the information that you're looking for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat, and we will do our best to answer them. We're also planning to retain this webinar as a podcast that we'll share on our website and social media platforms in the coming weeks. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Brian and Patricia a couple of questions so that we can generate the information that we want to generate to be able to communicate with you today. So for our listeners, Brian and Patricia, you know, people who've never heard of the Eden program, know nothing about it. Can you tell me what it is? What is the Eden program? Maybe
So
Patricia.
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
it is.
The Eden program is a program for people who are really struggling either with suicidal thoughts or may have made suicide attempts, and who are really struggling to stay in the world in lots of ways. And it's a program that offers people the opportunity to come into a group with other people who have similar experiences, different journeys, but similar experiences. And by that, I mean specifically who have had thoughts of suicide, or indeed who have made attempts at suicide. And the whole idea behind it is that it's an educational program with a therapeutic aspect. And again, in terms of what's involved in that, and I know we'll talk through it through the afternoon, but what we aim to do is to offer a series of topics. It's a 26-week program, and we offer over those 24 to 26 weeks, we offer a number of topics that connect with people and their mental health in a bid to help look at their mental health and give tools to help move away from suicide as the first point of choice, really, when they're in emotional distress, and to offer other ways, realizing that when people are in a lot of pain and are really struggling with how they are in the world, that there are things that we can do that help, and that those feelings, those emotions do pass, but they need time, and they need to have other ways, and we need to provide other ways for people to move through that distress. And Eden provides, I think, a lovely balance of both that education piece and also that place where people can come and talk about suicide and talk about how they're feeling in a way that is very held and is also very resource focused. So people can actually learn ways to help them during those times, which we know that pass, but can be very distressing at the time.
Okay, so there's a significant focus on education.
There is. It's a big part.
A big part of it is the focus on education and all these different topics that get covered over the 26 weeks, because it's a 26-week long program, a 26-week long commitment, really, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
Which sounds like a long time, but goes so fast.
So fast, so fast. Once it starts, it just seems to move at speed, doesn't it?
It does.
So quite a strong educational component, but with a therapeutic element. So you're describing that holding, that space for sharing, being able to talk about suicide, because it is so difficult for people to talk about that, and to have that place where talking about suicide is held.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the sharing of people's experiences, particularly actually in terms of things that has helped them.
Okay.
And so when we move through the program, we're always checking back in terms of, okay, what things that we've covered, how have they been useful for you? Are they useful? And that's where people can add so much, because we're all so different. We're all going to have different things that help, things that don't help. And being able to share that as well is really, really useful, we found.
Okay. So a lot of information and education coming from the participants as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brian, I can see you want to come in there. Go ahead.
Just because I'm just thinking, I'm trying to put myself in the place of someone who's just listening or looking at this, and I'm hearing the word educational, and in my head it's triggering the front, but it's sending me off thinking school, college, and all that kind of stuff.
Very good
and
point.
That's not what we mean from here.
Yeah.
This is not like a college course, or it's not like going back to school. This is an adults, well, it's a group, everyone is over 18, so it's about us going on a journey of discovery with information that can help us to lead us into ways of trying things differently. But I'm just very aware of that word education and what it does to me, so I'm just throwing that in there, that that's what you're thinking listening to this. We're not talking about a school class, we're not talking about a college course, we are talking about learning how to live possibly in a way that helps you differently to what you've known to now. So the education bit is more about discovering new things.
Yeah. So it's far from a classroom. That's very much about a group. Yeah, it's very much about a group. There is nothing classroom about Eden. So it's very much about the group being in a circle and everybody being equal, and people having things to contribute, and then Eden having things to contribute.
Yes.
So when we use the word education, that's what we mean, as opposed to a learning environment. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we have information that we present, but it's presented in conversation. Everything about Eden is conversation based. And I think one of the things that we always find is people learn just as much, if not more, from each other than they'll ever learn from the facilitators. Of course, there's information that's being facilitated, but it's the experience with that makes the difference. And that's the education.
Yeah. Okay.
Learning about ourselves.
Learning about ourselves. Brian, is there anything else that you'd like to add about that? You know, what it is and what does it aim to achieve? Is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, I think Patricia covered it really well. Like, the idea is, I suppose, that people get an opportunity to just have a look and see, is there other things that could possibly help them when they're struggling, when they're looking at crisis, when suicide becomes such a place in their life where it's the only option we can see. We're very limited. And I think the idea of this is to try and just give us a chance to be less limited and have other options to explore and to look at. And the idea of taking the 6 months, which I know we're at the end of one program next week, and it seems like it was only yesterday it started, and then we're at the beginning of other programs, and it looks like it's going to go on forever. But the reality is 6 months is a reasonable amount of time to be able to take the step back and have a look at your life and try things. And I think that's one of the great things about it as well. You might hear about something, you get an opportunity to try it, and you get an opportunity to come back a month or 2 months later and go, oh, I tried this, or I thought about that, rather than most programs I was ever involved in before Eden were like 6 weeks was a long program, you know, that kind of way. So you didn't really get a chance to try much. By the time you tried it and came back with it, trying to figure out how it worked, they were gone.
Yeah, it was over.
So with this, this one gives you that, really does give that opportunity, I think, for the try stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we have a kind of a sense of what Eden is and what we're aiming to achieve, how did Eden come to be? Like, what inspired the Eden program? Patricia, you're nodding. I'm going to.
Eden really grew from the lived experience of Suicide or Survives founder Caroline McGuigan. And Caroline's, like a lot of people, went through a period of time in her life, in her 20s, where life was very difficult. It didn't start off that way, but it became difficult. And she really, really struggled with high anxiety, with very low mood. And she found herself in the services having, I suppose, tried lots of different options. And she always says that where it originated was from her frustration with that there weren't other ways. Her lived experience led her to make a very serious suicide attempt. And when she started to work through that and look at all of that, she realized that while the medical model offered some help, which it certainly does, that one of the things that was missing was the focus on the person themselves. As she would always say, what was missing was me. And so one of the big aspects of Eden, and indeed any of the SOS programs, is our focus on the person themselves, and what they need to do in terms of putting things into place, because it recognizes the individuality of every person. All of our journeys are different, but it holds the ethos that when we learn about ourselves, and Eden is very much based on the recovery principles, so it very much holds the hope and the belief that people can and do grow, learn, recover from difficulties. And that in that recovery, and indeed the discovery, which I think is much more a word that fits much better now for most of us actually, is that we discover things that may have led us to some of the issues that were going on, and things that will help. And so when she moved through the services, she literally decided and sat down at her kitchen table and realized there needs to be something else. And it was literally from that Eden was born. And so we know, and the research tells us, and we know from our own experience, that lived experience and people talking about their lived experience not just inspires hope, but also gives a real credibility to the journey that people have had. And that's where Eden came from. And so Caroline was the founder, and from there, then she was later CEO. From there, Eden was born. It started in Arklow, with some programs in Arklow, and then moved into Dublin. So I was involved in the first program in Dublin, and from there, we obviously partner with the HSE over in the West. We have, new programs starting up in Kildare and West Wicklow. And we have some online programs, but that's where it came from. And I know we'll get into those details soon, but that's where Eden was born from.
Yeah. So it was born from one person's lived experience, which has really promoted the whole lived experience of Eden and the individual lived experience of every participant.
And combine that then, because Caroline then went on to train as a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
So it has both the lived experience and the experience that we learn through psychology and therapy and all those sort of things as well. So I think it's a really good fit. It's a really good mix actually, because it gives a balance.
Yeah. Okay. Brian, is there anything you'd like to add there, or will I move on and ask you?
I'll move on.
Move on. Okay.
She's doing a great job here covering
Okay.
all of that. Yeah.
I suppose, I was going to ask you, who is it for? And I know we've talked a little bit about who is it for. But for example, how would I know if this program was right for me?
I think one of the things I would really hope is people would not leave Eden until it's a last resort. If you're in a place where your life is in a place where suicide has become something that's in your thought processes, in your coping mechanisms, in your life, if you've ever made an attempt, if suicidal ideation, which is a wonderful word for just saying like thoughts of killing myself are in my life, if they're there, then I think I would love to say, please put an application in for Eden and come and talk to us. There's no commitment by putting an application in. I know we're probably going to talk about that later as well, but just send an application form and come. Our hearts for meeting anybody who wants to come in Eden is always to make sure that what we're offering is going to make life better for people, not make it worse.
Yeah.
People don't apply to us because they're having a great life at that moment in time. It's because
that real sense of life isn't good.
They're struggling. So if there is something going on for you, then please put an application in, and don't wait until it's a last resort.
Okay. So if I was thinking about this, what I'm hearing from both of you is that if suicide is becoming an option for me, that Eden is also an option for me.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
You would be encouraging me to put in an application for Eden and not wait until I get to a point where suicide is the only option for me.
If possible, if at all possible, or if you're at that point where it seems like suicide is the only option,
you can
then
still apply.
Still put an application. Absolutely. Absolutely. And even if it's a case where you have made an attempt or several attempts, still apply.
So we're talking about applying. How would somebody go about applying for Eden? What's the process? How would you get an application form? Or, because you mentioned fill in an application form. How does one go about applying for Eden?
Yeah.
Which of you wants to take that?
I'm sorry, I froze.
You did
That's my
freeze,
fault.
yeah. That's
I was
okay.
waiting on my freeze to stop.
Okay.
If you just ring the office,
Yeah.
27. Do you have the number?
2722158 01 2722158. Yeah, so you can
Or
ring the
go
office.
online. There's information online. Here's the wonderful thing I think about Eden is this is a self-referral program. You don't need to have a doctor refer you. You don't need to have a psychotherapist refer you. You don't need to have a counselor. You don't need to have a psychiatrist, psychologist, or any professional refer you. If you feel that this program could be of benefit for you, all you need to do is ring up. Catherine in the office or someone in the office will email you a form, fill out the details, and it's very simple. It's kind of like name, address,
We might just step in there, Patricia. So
contact,
it's
a little tiny bit about you, see up with you.
Okay. We might have missed a little bit of you there, Brian. So it's literally name, address.
Sorry.
Yeah, name, address,
Very
contact
small amount
details.
of details. Yeah, send it in to us, email it in, and we will be in touch, and we'll follow up, and we'll connect with you, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. So a few ways that we can apply is you can ring the office on 01 2722158. You can send an email to eden@suicideorsurvive.ie. That's Eden, EDEN, @suicideorsurvive.ie. Or you can go onto our website, Suicide or Survive, and you'll find the application form under the Eden program. So 3 options there. Okay.
Yeah.
So Brian, what happens then once the application is completed? What happens then?
Okay, we'll come into the office, and for the particular programs that we're recruiting for right now, I'll be in touch with you because I'm coordinating the programs. And what I'll do is I'll give you a phone call, or if you don't answer the phone, I'll send you a text and let you know who it is, because some people are wary of answering strange phone numbers. And we will organize to have an interview. And we always say, like, an interview is a hard word because you're not going for a job, you're not coming to prove anything. But we haven't come up with a better name for it yet. So anyway, but it's a conversation. We want to find out a little bit about your life, what's been happening for you, what's brought you to this place, what's going on for you now, is there anything helping you, what would you like out of life, just general conversation that's going to give us some information. And like I said earlier on, we don't want to offer somebody a place on a program that's going to make life worse on them. So we want to make sure that this is a fit. It's like two pieces of a jigsaw puzzle coming together. So we'll have that conversation, and then we will be back in touch. And obviously that gives you an opportunity to ask us loads of questions, because I'm sure if you're coming in to talk to us about a program, you want to know, like, where's it happen, how's it happen, who does this, what happened, and maybe even on the day you might forget half the questions. You'll have my number. You can contact me by text me, and I'll ring you back, and we'll be able to answer those questions. I know whenever I even go to the doctor, I go in with a list and I come out and I forgot half of it. So them kind of things happen. So we will maintain a contact, and then if we think the program's a fit for you, I'll connect with you again. One of us anyway will, and we'll offer you a place on the program, which at that time you are welcome to accept, or also you may choose that no, you don't want to accept the place in the program, or maybe it's not for that time, or whatever, and that will be totally up to you. We won't try and coerce you or force you or anything like that. And like I say, an application or even an interview is no commitment on any side. It's just the commitment is we're going to meet and have a conversation.
Okay. So the word interview then, what I'm hearing from you is that the word interview is kind of just a word because we can't think of a better one, but it's really about getting to know the applicant, see if this is the right fit. That's really what we're looking at, isn't it? See if this program is going to be of assistance to you, and also to give the applicant the opportunity to ask whatever questions they want to ask about the program as well. So we're just trying to get to know a little bit about you and to make sure that we're going to help you by inviting you onto the program.
Yeah, and I think the thing is to make sure that the program is a good fit for the applicant rather than the applicant is a good fit for the program.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way of putting it.
Yeah. The emphasis is on the best for the applicant, not the best for the program.
Okay, Patricia, what type of outside supports might a participant need during the program? Because it's 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's 6 months, and it's 6 months of a time of really maybe being in quite a different space where all of a sudden there is an opportunity, which is great in lots of ways, but it also can be really scary. So, and we're very, very aware of that. And I think one of the things that stands out for any participant who joins us on Eden is the bravery, because it's the commitment, and it's the commitment to look at a different way of life. And that can be really, really hard. So one of the things that we say is really very important is that anybody who joins us on the Eden program also has their own therapy alongside it. And one of the reasons for that, well, there's lots of different reasons for that. I would say the two key reasons are there's a reason why every single person is in that room. And it didn't happen overnight. There are issues, there are people's journeys that have brought them to this particular place. And so to have space to be able to look at that, where people have an hour to be able to do it with a therapist in a very individual way, that's massively important. The other thing is that by very nature of groups, they tend to stir things up in us. First group was family of origin. You know, most of us spend our lives trying to get through that and over that in lots of cases. And so there's going to be people in the group that at times we may be impacted by, we might be, I'm slow to use the word triggered by, but they might remind us of somebody in our families maybe we didn't get on so well with, or the sort of roles that we played in our families will also play out in a group. And then there's also the information that we're giving. That in itself sometimes can most certainly impact people in a very positive way, but it can also impact people in terms of, I never thought of that, or that kind of rings a bell because it fits with something that happened to me at some stage, or that sort of thing. So having your own therapy is really important to have that additional support. And we would say in terms of support, that's the base layer. You need that. We've also found that the two together work very well, because as part of what we look at Eden, it is very much in terms of helping somebody through difficulties and considering, having all these options to consider ways to help them through. And it works very well then when because we're not a therapeutic group. So people have pressures in their lives, they have pain in their lives that can be named in the group, but we don't work them through. And so people need somewhere to take them. So that therapy is really important from that perspective. We have lots of people who come onto Eden who are linked into mental health teams, whether that is psychiatry, psychology, psychiatric nurse, all those type of things. GPs can be very, very useful. So one of the things we would be very clear about is Eden is one spoke on the support wheel, so to speak. It's 3 hours a week. It's a very important 3 hours a week, but there are an awful lot of other hours in that week. And so the support then of other, whether it's friends, family, services, by far the one that we're very clear about that everybody needs is to have their own therapy. We also are very aware that therapy can be expensive. There are people who can be linked into their mental health teams, and also there are low-cost centres. So we're very, very cognizant of that. We're very aware of that too. But we do know that those two, so the therapy and Eden together, very, very helpful.
Okay, so while we talk about Eden being a supportive space in itself, which it certainly is, that there are other supports required, because as you say, it's 3 hours a week. Sometimes things can happen in the group that might awaken something in somebody or impact somebody, and having another space to go on a one-to-one and be able to look into that, explore that, is really important, and get additional support.
Exactly.
And that's really important.
We also ask that everybody has what we call a support person.
Yeah.
So that's somebody who is in their lives, in the vicinity of where they live. So you might have a really good friend in Greece, but that won't work, so to speak, as your support person. So we ask for the name of somebody who we can contact. The person can contact themselves if they need somebody to be with them.
Yeah.
And that can be physical as well. I mean,
We're relational beings.
Absolutely. So that's something that we ask for as well. And the other thing that does, and it really supports where we come from in terms of also trying to reduce the stigma around suicide, is that we ask, obviously, that the person tells their support person they're on the Eden program. So we know that isolation is one of the big things that kills. And so even to have one person in your life who is not a therapist, someone who we know that you can call if you just need somebody to be with you. So they are the support person, therapy, and also the other supports as well. But those two main ones are what's really important for anyone in Eden.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Patricia. Brian, how many people would you take on a program? Like, how many people would be in the group?
Maximum will be 16.
Maximum 16.
The maximum amount will be 16 people on a program.
Okay.
Currently, we're recruiting for 3 programs, which means we have 48 places available. All hoping to start in September. Will I talk about the programs now?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
We've one that's going to happen in person in the Carmelite Centre in Dublin City Centre on a Thursday morning from 10 to 1. And we're interviewing for that at the moment. We have one which will be happening on Wednesday evenings online. And we're recruiting for that as well. And we have one that will be happening on a Wednesday morning in Kildare town, or to cover Kildare and West Wicklow, or down as far as Portlaoise. If people want to drive up, it's up to themselves.
Okay, so 3 programs commencing. 3 programs commencing in September.
For the 3 of them,
yeah, with options, with 3 options, one in the city, one online, and one in Kildare.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. When the program commences, is there any particular structure to it, or how does it work?
So we start the morning. So everybody arrives at the 2 in-person programs. Everybody arrives for 10 in the morning, and we start with just a moment or two of a grounding, and that can take different shapes and forms and that, but just kind of like a small mindfulness exercise just to get everybody into the room and to be there. Then what we do is we move to a check-in, and what we ask people about in the check-in is, first of all, how they are there and then, because that's hugely important. So how they are there and then, and also we can't do it in the first few weeks, but as we move through the program, what they've heard from previous weeks that they're putting into their lives, and really importantly, how they're helping. So it's just about trying these things out. And we really want to check in with people, but it's also a really good place. The check-in is a really good place for people that if they need a bit of support, because when we've got 16 people in a room, everybody's in different places in their lives. And it might be, and it happens for the facilitators as much as the participants, that I might have a week where I'm not doing so well, or I've got a lot of pressures in my life, and so there's time and there's space to be able to get a small amount of support on that. And that's just about being heard. Nobody's trying to solve anybody's problems or anything like that, but it's a space where people can say, this is how I am. And we will, as facilitators, we will always thread that back to, okay, just wondering about some of the things that might help, while always making sure that the choice is the person's. We are not suggesting any one particular way, but obviously we've got to know each participant, even through the interviewing process, and we will have, people would have told us some of the things that have helped. That's even part of our initial conversation, and we can then have that conversation that allows people link back into some of those supports that might help them, particularly when things are difficult. So that will be the check-in. We also do what we call a support document. And the support document is really about encouraging people to, again, in the here and now, really look and see, what is it that I need for these 3 hours that we're here right now? Right now, what do I need? And we really encourage people to focus on that. And that might be, I need a glass of water, I need to breathe, I need to keep my head here, I need to stay present. I
need to open the window.
Support. I need to open a window. And that, what we really hope is that people then start to look at that in their lives. We really encourage people to look at that in their lives later on. So that's the support document. Then we have tea, coffee break, because it's really essential. That's, you know,
Yeah.
possibly the favorite piece of people in the group, and biscuits, and that sort of thing. And that's also, it's an opportunity for people to have a slightly more informal sense outside, where so many things happen over a cup of tea.
Yes.
So we do that. Then we come back after that, and that's when the main bulk of the educational piece will happen. And by that, I mean that we will have one of our topics. We give a small piece of information around it, and then we really encourage people to get involved in the conversation. We'll have certain exercises that we'll ask people to do, just to get them thinking about what each topic means in their life, because every topic we cover on Eden will relate to mental health and life.
Yeah.
So we do that, and then at the end of the program, we do a short checkout where, again, we ask people to just focus on, how are you right now? Is there anything from today that might have been helpful in terms of your week ahead? So that would be the structure of the 3 hours.
Lovely, lovely. Okay. And Brian, is there any proof that it works?
I think there's quite a lot of research there. There's been many reviews done by DCU over the years.
Yeah.
We even had one, because we went online during COVID, we had a review done of the online one as well. And the results are that it does work. It does help people to, and it's not about saving people. It's not about changing people. It's about giving people the opportunity to find their stuff that helps themselves to change their own lives. But all of the evidence points to say, yes, it does. It actually does work.
Yeah. So I suppose we do. There is good evidence, because we do internal evaluations. You know, we ask the participants to evaluate it, and they give us a lot of feedback. And then we have the external evaluations, like you say, which have been carried out by DCU so far. And we also have another external review coming up on the online program that we're going to be delivering in September. That'll be done by UCC. So we have both research evidence, and we have the evidence that we get from the participants that says, this works, that this is effective. And we know it's the only program of its type that's being run at the moment. And it's the duration of it that has the biggest impact.
Yeah. Okay. And I think just being able to be with people who have had similar experiences and being able to speak about them has a huge impact.
Yeah, I actually have some quotes here from people who have done the program. A 2022 participant said, "It has made a huge difference to my life. I learned a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. The positive part of my mind thinks I want to live and not die." Isn't that lovely? Yeah. And I learned a lot about myself, but also about people in general. I realized I'm not alone, and suicide doesn't have to be an option. So again, that was somebody that did the program in 2022. So you're both facilitating Eden for quite some time. What drew you to be involved in Eden? I'm going to go with Patricia first. What brought you to Eden?
I think it's funny, isn't it? I was going to say sadly for me. It's both sadly and fortuitously, I suppose, in some ways. But for me, my best friend died by suicide in 2008. And I was working with Caroline in Maynooth as a tutor on one of their courses, their counselling courses. And Caroline had spoken about Eden. And I always remember being very, very interested, but like so many things in life, when we're affected by it personally, because I had absolutely met it in my clients, but I hadn't had an experience in my life. And when Kieran died by suicide, I felt so helpless. All the pieces of grief, but also the helplessness. And also, I was very aware of an anger that started to come up in me. That whether or not, I often think, I'm not sure Kieran would ever have even come to an Eden program, but the sense that there was nothing else there for him. And so I got in touch with Caroline and said, look, I really want to do this. I need to be able to channel how I feel in lots of ways. And I want to be able to help people in this way, and not in I suppose it wasn't all altruistic. You know, there was a part of me that needed some healing in that as well.
Mhm.
But it was really his death by suicide and the absolute grief that I experienced after that, and the loss. And it caused me to really start questioning, because he would have been one of the people who was just so loved in life. And what he went through led him to a place where he believed he had no other option. And that had a huge impact on me, and that's what brought me to Eden.
Okay. And you've been with Eden now for how long?
Since 2010, so 13 years.
13 years. And what is it about Eden at this stage that keeps you involved after 13 years?
Do you know what? There are so many. I'll keep it brief because I know we're caught on time. But first of all, the need is still there. With everything that's happened over the number of years, we still have people who feel that their only option is suicide, and it is a very, very real option. And I think one of the things that we're very clear in SOS is that we totally accept that everybody has that right to choose. We're not trying to take it off the table. We're trying to offer an alternative, and alternatives in lots of ways. So what keeps me there is, first of all, knowing that the huge need is there, but also I have met the most incredible of all the work that I do. I have met incredible people on Eden, people who are in pain, have been in pain, continue to be in pain. But the courage and the bravery, and we're coming to the end of Eden Dublin, our first program, Eden Dublin, and to see the difference that it can make in people's lives, that's what keeps me here. Okay. And the hope and the wanting to get rid of the stigma, but all of those things keep me there.
Yeah, it's lovely, Patricia. Thank you very much. Brian, I'm going to ask you the same question. So what drew you to Facilitate Eden? What encouraged you to get
I would
involved?
love to tell you I am as nice as Patricia, but I was invited onto Eden.
Okay.
I was working with Suicide Survive. I started doing some stuff with them. I'd had a breakdown in 2013 in a different position I was working in. And I knew Caroline and someone else who worked in SOS, and I started doing some wellness workshops and one-day workshops and stuff with them. And I was with them probably 6 months, and an Eden program was starting, and they invited me one day for a conversation and asked me would I be interested in being part of it. And if I'm being 100% honest with you, I didn't know what I was getting myself in for. But I wasn't very long in it when I realized that, like, yeah, there's something special about this, and I wanted to be part of it. So I can't tell you, oh God, I heard about Eden and I was drawn to it. I wasn't. I was offered a bit of work and I took it. But once I was in it, and it's similar to what Patricia just said, the stuff that kept me even then through that first program and has kept me wanting to be involved since then is the people. You get to go on the most incredible journey with incredible people, for, like, in some cases nearly 9 months of their lives, because sometimes we interview people 2 and 3 months before the program starts. Yeah. So we're in touch with them then for 2 or 3 months, and then we get to meet every week. I was only saying to the group this morning that are finishing up next week, I'm going to miss them.
Yeah,
like they've
I'd imagine over 6
journey.
months. Yeah, over 6
You know
months.
What I mean? So
yeah, you develop a relationship.
Yeah.
But it's just this incredible privileges of us. And if I was to say one word for most times I walk out of an Eden session, that word would fit there hugely, is that it's a privilege to get to sit in a room with people and see them fight for their lives.
Yeah.
And they are fighting.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not recognized by the world around them, but they are fighting.
Okay. I'm conscious that we've been talking for 45 minutes. Isn't it unbelievable how quickly that went? I suppose I'd just like to recap, a lot of what you've said. So the Eden program is an educational program, and we're using the word education, even though we're making it very clear it's not a classroom format, it's very much a group format, with a therapeutic element that supports people to move away from suicide as an option of choice in times of crisis. That's really what we're saying Eden is. It's for people who are over 18 who have contemplated or attempted suicide. It runs for 26 weeks. And it's for a maximum of 16 people in any one group. That's the absolute maximum. If you're interested, or if this sounds like that this is something that might work for you, you can find an application form on the Suicide or Survive website. You can email eden@suicideorsurvive.ie. That's Eden, EDEN, @suicideorsurvive.ie for an application form. Or you can call Suicide or Survive office on 01 27 22 158. And you'll get to talk to Catherine or one of the other staff who will send you out an application form. Suicide or Survive will reply to you and arrange an interview for you. And as you heard, the interview isn't really an interview. It's very much a getting to know each other opportunity. And it's a chance for us to know that the program is right for you. And it's a chance for you to get to ask your questions and see, do you think that the program is right for you too? You will need the support of a counsellor throughout the program, and we would really like you to have at least one support person in your life as well to support you throughout the program. I'm going to read you another quote from somebody who has completed the program, just to hear the words of people who've been through it. The Eden program, in my opinion, is one of the best things to happen to mental health system in Ireland for a very long time. It's relatable, practical, and gives us back control of our lives in a manageable, practical forum. Also, what makes this course work is that the facilitators are talking from life experiences and not textbooks, which makes them relatable. And again, that was from an Eden participant in 2022. So I think the best way to finish up is to leave it with the words of somebody who's been through Eden. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. You can listen to this again as a webinar on our website. And if you have registered, you will automatically get a copy of the webinar sent to you. As I said earlier, we're also creating a podcast from this recording today. So keep an eye out for the release date on our website and our social media platforms. So that's the Suicide or Survive website and the Suicide or Survive social media platforms. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you, Brett. Nice to be here.